Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, EM Thinks I Owe Her 10,000 Pounds Compensation because her son grew up to be a thug, just like I said he would. Years ago, my cousin Lucy and I had a strained relationship because she let her son, Damien, do anything he wanted, never punished him, and brushed away anything he did as boys will be boys, or he's just a kid. It came to a breaking point between us when Lucy and Damien were visiting years ago. Damien was 12 at the time, and my daughter Maggie was 9. Maggie was sitting happily playing her Xbox in her bedroom upstairs. While Lucy and I were talking, Damien got bored and wandered off. A few minutes later, I heard screaming and crying. I rush up to Maggie's room to find her on the floor, blood all over her face, while Damien is just casually playing Xbox. It turns out he came up and demanded a turn on Xbox. Maggie said, "Sure, just let me finish the level." So he snatched the controller from her hand and smashed her around the face with it, then shoved her out of the way. I rushed her to the hospital. Luckily, it looked worse than it was, and there was no lasting damage, and I live in the UK, so no medical bills, but I was furious. I told Lucy what Damien did, and she shrugged and said, "You know how boys are with their video games. She should have just let him play." I told her in no uncertain terms that she and her son were not allowed anywhere near me or my family. We got into a huge fight over this, where she, of course, tried to absolve her little angel of anything. So I lost it and told her if she didn't discipline him and teach him boundaries, she would end up raising a monster who would grow up to be a thug or worse, which infuriated her. This caused a fallout within the family for years, largely because Lucy lied and told everyone her son and Maggie had just been play fighting, and that's how she got hurt. It was just an accident, and I was overreacting. After a few years, everyone forgot. I still forbade Lucy or her hellspawn from coming anywhere near me. Several other family members did the same. I can't imagine why. Fast forward to a little before the pandemic. Damien was 19. Just like I predicted, he soon learned that thanks to his mother, he was bulletproof, as she would never believe he did anything wrong. So his behavior got worse and worse to the point where he was kicked out of every school in the area and had to go to a special school. I got a call from Frank, Lucy's brother, telling me that Lucy had been rushed to the hospital, that he knows we don't talk, but Lucy was seriously hurt, and he wanted to let me know. Despite our history, I went to visit Lucy, accompanied by Frank and his wife. Before this, we had been really close, and I was upset to hear she was hurt. When I got there, I was shocked by what I saw. She was really banged up, her face swollen, bruises all up her arms. It turned out Damien had done this. She was really struggling for money, and he refused to get a job. So she tried to lay down the law and tell him to get a job, or she was throwing him out. So he attacked her, almost dislocated her jaw. It was horrific. Now, we had a history, but at this point, none of that mattered. I was worried and sad for her. I immediately asked if she needed help with anything. She seemed surprised, but we ended up all having a real heartwarming chat with her saying how much it meant to her that I came to see her. I thought maybe we were turning a corner and could repair our relationship. We had been really close as kids. Oh, how wrong I was. A few weeks later, I started getting blasted on social media and getting nasty messages and texts telling me what an awful person I was. And how could I do what I did to Lucy? I was confused. I hadn't done anything. I called Frank. He had no idea either, but he said he would look into it. Turns out Lucy had told everyone I had come to the hospital and mocked her, gloating, "I told you so," while she bawled her eyes out. I confronted Lucy about it, asking her how she could lie like that. She hit back that this was all my fault. It's what I deserved. If I knew this was going to happen, why didn't I do more to help her? She then demanded I pay her at least 10,000 pounds for damages I caused. Like, what the fuck? She lied to everyone because she couldn't stand that I had been right and decided to punish me for it. For months, I endured hateful messages from family members who believed her lies. Not all my family believed her, of course, and Frank and his wife cleared things up about what really happened. He managed to record Lucy admitting that she lied, which got most people off my back. But there were still a few relatives who had it in their heads that there's no smoke without fire, and I must have done something to make her say what she did. But they're all distant relatives on her side, so who cares? Then the pandemic rolled around. Everyone forgot the petty squabbles Lucy and her lies caused. But last month we held a family gathering at my parents', the first in years due to the pandemic. Lucy showed up. Thankfully, Damien was absent on account of serving a prison sentence for aggravated assault and battery, unrelated to what he did to his mother. I went to ask Lucy how she was doing. The first words out of her mouth were, "You need to pay me what you owe me. If you don't, I'm taking you to court." I need that money. It's the least you can do for ruining my life. She followed me around the party demanding that I pay her, telling everyone who would listen that I had ruined her life. My, what a happy family reunion. The next story is titled, Steal Grandma's Land, Build an Illegal House, and Trespass on Our Property? We'll destroy you. Growing up in my family was a roller coaster of emotions. There was always a lot of drama, especially between my aunt and my children, and the rest of us. My aunt was the kind of person who thought she could do whatever she wanted without any consequences. She was selfish and lacked empathy, which is why it didn't come as a surprise when she stole money from my grandmother and lied about it. This eventually led to my mother and grandmother disowning her and her children. On the other hand, my grandmother was the complete opposite of my aunt. She was the sweetest and most loving person you could ever meet. Her kindness was unmatched, and she was always there to put her foot down when needed. She owned a large piece of land that I was responsible for maintaining, and I was named in her will along with my mother. But things started to change when my aunt wanted to make amends and get back into the family. She started taking care of my grandmother, who had grown weaker and needed help, and soon became a constant presence in her life. Despite her efforts to act like she had changed, I had a feeling that something was off. My instincts were right, and I discovered that she was putting small doses of a harmful chemical in my grandmother's food to make her feel sick, so she could appear as the one who was helping her. I knew I had to act fast, so I confronted my aunt about what she was doing and warned her that I would call the police if she continued. She stopped making my grandmother sick, but I soon realized that she was up to something else. I found out that she had built an illegal house on the edge of my grandmother's property and was spreading lies about my mother and me, hoping to get us out of the will. I was determined to get back at my aunt, so I came up with a plan. I had permission to take care of my grandmother's land, so I told my aunt to get rid of the illegal house. When she refused, I called the police, and they came out to the property and shut down the illegal house. My aunt was furious and tried to blame me, but the evidence was clear. I had outsmarted her and got the revenge I wanted. From that day on, I made sure to keep a closer eye on my aunt and cousins, and I was never going to let them get the better of me again. I want to protect what was rightfully mine and ensure that my grandmother was free from their grasp. I also made sure to keep a closer eye on my grandmother and take care of her, knowing that she was the most important person in my life. She was the reason I had become the person I am today, and I was grateful for her love and support. However, my aunt's determination to get back at me grew stronger. She started spreading false rumors and lying to anyone who would listen, trying to tarnish my reputation. I was determined not to let her win, so I dug up all the evidence I could find of her illegal activities and presented it to the authorities. With the help of the police, I was able to bring her to justice and put an end to her reign of terror once and for all. In the end, I emerged victorious, having successfully defended my family's honor and protected what was rightfully ours. My grandmother was proud of me, and I was proud of myself for standing up for what was right. It was a long and difficult journey, but I wouldn't have changed a thing, because sometimes the greatest reward comes from getting revenge. The next story is titled, Crazy Karen at Starbucks Gets Kicked Out. So, this isn't my first post here, and I'm sure it won't be my last. I'm deaf and have been since I was 12. From then on, I learned sign language and really focused on learning how to lip read because all of my friends were hearing. Our story begins a couple of days ago when me and a good friend of mine, known each other for over 10 years, were in line at Starbucks. Honestly, I was pretty nervous as most of the time I just use mobile order because it's a lot less pressure on me and less time consuming for the barista. But of course, today my phone had died. Luckily, I had a friend with me to calm me down. There was a pretty long line, but we didn't mind and we just signed while we waited our turn. When I see the lady in front of us at the counter, I can tell she's angry as she's throwing her hands up in the air. But of course she's facing away from me so I don't get to know all the juice. I asked my friend to sign what she was saying so I could gossip with her. So she starts interpreting, and here's what went down. EP, you are honestly the worst cashier I have ever met. Where is your manager? Today's your last day at work, and I'm going to make sure of it. Barista, I'll be right back. Just let me go get my manager for you. In the meantime, just step right over here so these two ladies can get through. The barista turns around and leaves when the EP looks back at me and my friend. EP, of course. Starbucks is always putting something I didn't understand, yet I'm always put last. Me, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, I'm deaf. I said this while signing EP. So they're going to serve a retard over me. I've been waiting longer and they should really serve the normal people first, she said. Something after that, but I was so shocked that I stopped reading her lips. Friend, are you kidding me? She's just deaf and she deserves just as much respect as you. Don't start calling her abnormal just because she can't ducking hear, you cunt. The manager came in from the back to calm everyone down. EP apparently told the manager I was throwing up gang signs when my friend told him, she's ducking deaf. What do you want from her, lady? And then EP went off on the cashier for attempting to have other people cut her in line. EP was asked to leave, and my friend and I got our drinks for free. And man, did it feel good to wave at that idiot while she was huffing in her car with my free coffee. The next story is titled, Ruined My Crap Boss's Marriage. About 10 years ago, when I was 19, I worked for a regional grocery store in the meatpacking department. Pay was bad, and I had a second shift. I came in at 3 and left at 11. It wasn't a terrible job, all things considered. I had the meat room to myself so I could listen to music and really just not be annoyed by other employees. My duties when I showed up was to package more ground beef and other beef-based products and put them on the shelf. After 5, I also had to juggle working behind the deli counter. Well, shortly after getting hired, the boss of the meat department showed back up from vacation, and I was the new guy. Everything was fine at the beginning, but I found when I would clock in, the lady behind the counter, we'll call her V, wouldn't be there, and there would be a line. So I would clock in, spend the first 30 minutes of my shift doing her job. No problem. I actually liked that position. Well, after the line was done, I would almost always see Mr. Boss staring me down angry. I'm not doing my job. He would give me the rant about doing my duties unless customers needed my help, and they almost always did, but he wouldn't listen. Come to find out, the reason V isn't behind the counter is because her and Mr. Boss are having meetings in his office with the door closed. Not my husband or wife, not my problem. We continue in this dance of me covering her station and getting in trouble for it for a few weeks until an ice storm hits. I tell my boss I can't drive my car out and I'm waiting on a ride, so I might be a little late. He proceeded to fire me because this is the last straw. By the way, I hadn't had any write-ups. I agree it's fine because I hate this job anyway. Fast forward 2 years. I'm 21, and I'm celebrating with my friends at basically the only local bar in this terrible, tiny, crap-hole town. And when we walk in, who do we see? Why, if it isn't Mr. Boss, and not V, but his wife. He looks at me and tries to act like it's a happy coincidence. I sit down, tell him it's my 21st. He buys me a beer as a gift, and I chat him up. Enter my revenge. I introduce myself to his wife and tell her how he treated me, talking about how I would cover the deli counter almost every shift for half an hour and then get in trouble for it because it wasn't my job. No matter how many times I tried telling Mr. Boss I wouldn't have to cover deli if he and V weren't having their daily locked-door meetings in his office. She looked at him and looked at me and couldn't say a word. It could be read as crappy. But then his wife was super polite and friendly, and not in that crappy Southern religious style, but a genuinely nice person. I'm glad I could help pull the wool to let her know her husband is a complete garbage person. The last story is titled, I Hate People. So, some backstory. I work at a low-volume, high-price restaurant. Since we don't make a lot, we end up selling out some of our stuff occasionally. On this day, we happen to sell out one of our meats. Of course, customers come in right as we start to close. This is what happens. Customer, can I get one of your meat sandwiches? Me, I'm sorry, we actually sold out of that today. Customer, you're joking. What time do you close? Me, in about 5 minutes. Customer, well, I expect service until the second you close your restaurant. Me, I understand that, but we sold out an hour ago, and I'm cleaning my oven. I point over to the oven that's clearly being cleaned with soap all over inside. Customer, well, hurry and clean it. I want your meat sandwich. Me, I'm sorry, but I won't be able to make it. We are about to close. Customer, what the hell? How can you possibly expect me to pay $20 for your sandwich if you're out of it? I'm silent. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I am supposed to say that. Customer, exactly. So please make me a sandwich. I looked down at the clock and realized that we were supposed to be closed now. Me, I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're closed. She gasps and says, ooh, really? You're going to love the Yelp review I leave for you. And to think I was going to leave you one huge tip. But here's a better one for you. She then flips me off and leaves. Ducking Karen, thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you would like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.